Hey everybody, welcome to Monday. And today's actually a follow-up from Friday. Sometimes this happens, and I want to be clear, because people love to twist my words, that this is an attempt to try to make some people feel heard and validated regarding some emotional responses on stuff. A difficult thing about this content is that if I spent every video doing caveats for every single person and every single point of view, I'd get nowhere and people complain my videos are too long as they are. But sometimes I think it's important to just sort of validate feelings about things. And I think that's not done enough in any industry, but definitely this one, definitely gaming. And I think that's part of the problem. It sounds to me like people are looking to hear from people in the industry that they understand what their concerns are. And they're not getting that because of the specific type of concerns. And I want to spend some time on that because I think it's a valid concern. I'm not going to go point by point through all the reasons why it may apply to one thing and not another. All this. That would be a logical response to an emotional problem. So I'm not going to do that. If you like this sort of content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, because I have no idea what I'm going to label this video. Obviously, this is in response to the Aloy thing. And it's odd, because previous times where, for instance, the cyberpunk transphobic poster controversy, I said the posters may absolutely make sense in the game itself. I'm not going to judge them without understanding the context of the game, and all that was fine. When I said that about Aloy's appearance in Horizon Forbidden West, things got kind of weird. There were quite a few comments where people were, she still doesn't get it. It's not that they changed her appearance or whether it makes sense. It's why they changed her appearance. And I did address that. We don't know for certain if they changed her appearance, if they intentionally changed her appearance, or if it was just a technical burp, putting out half-baked gameplay footage, which happens all the time. I've seen it on a lot of behind closed doors stuff for games. That's the reason they put it behind closed doors. Of course, they can't do behind closed doors stuff this year. And I guess they thought, we'll put it out. People will be so wowed by a robot dinosaur that looks cool and all that green flex color that they won't mind a roughness on the performance capture. And they were wrong. But I said, let's wait for the game. If the game comes out and she does look different and there's no real explanation for Aloy looking different, I'll be with you, okay? But let's wait for the game. First of all, I know I'm going to play the game because I really liked the gameplay in the first game. Granted, I am an Atari generation kid. A lot of the characters look like shit ass on the PlayStation 1. The original Tomb Raider, she had triangular boobs, right? Like, I care about different things. This is where I could spend a lot of time going, you guys are being inconsistent. It's wait for the game, don't prejudge it until it's something that spooks you, and then wait for the game goes out the window. But that you don't understand why the change matters thing, whenever people sort of, and this is not an insult, just please hear me out, whenever people regress to something that sounds like an upset teenager or an angry child, there is trauma there. And I don't know how else to say this because this is, you don't understand. I do understand, okay? I understand this thing chapter and verse people don't like the idea, this perception that game companies are secretly laughing at the fan base, going, we're not going to give you what you want. We're going to give you what we think you should have. I admit, I do not have any idea where this idea came from among game developers. The game's press, absolutely. But game developers, I do not know how everybody got painted with this brush. A few companies grandstanded, acted dumb, probably because their corporate overlords insisted that they do it. Tried to curry favor with one section of gaming and pissed off another. I have never heard a AAA game developer go, I'm going to deliberately make a story that the core gaming demographic hates. You know, there's a lot of, and I'll say up front, this is annoying to me. This is common with writers and directors and things like that who want to make important stuff instead of entertaining stuff. That's just an indication of their own low self-esteem. I have something to say. Maybe go make a movie then, not something that's supposed to be about, you know, an element of decision making and player choice. And I mean, other games do it. The Witcher 3 was full of cause and effect and choices that mattered, and you know, I think they did a good job on that point. Still told the story they wanted to tell. But this, I don't know what to do about this fear. Because I think it's actually becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, precisely because, you know, I've heard game developers basically say, well, no matter what we do, someone's going to scream at us. So we don't know what to do. That's what I'm hearing. Like, we're just going to do our best and be prepared to get screamed at. And think about making something where the whole time you're just waiting to get screamed at. Now, a lot of people, they don't have to deal with the PR stuff, so they just sort of tune it all out and make their game. But the people that do care, the people who got into this industry because they want to make people happy, they do watch the fan response, and it's hurtful and painful for them to get called, you know, racist and sexist and misogynist, and then you don't care about the fans, you're deliberately making ugly characters. None of this is true. Like, none of this is true. Not in the AAA space, outside of a few, you know, notable examples. I remember hearing from someone who worked on the Dragon Age games how upset they were that people thought Cassandra was ugly. I remember another game where someone based a character on their own kid, and the character got savaged for being an unrealistic so-and-so. It was based on their kid. And so obviously it was pretty realistic because it was based on a real person. This stuff's savage. We're not going to be able to get rid of that completely. We can tone it down some. And I agree that it needs to be toned down. I'm really bothered by the amount of hurt that's out there. It's legitimate hurt. It's raw pain. It's a feeling of rejection. And it just keeps coming back to the same thing, is that people found gaming because of a place that would accept them when they didn't think anywhere else did. And now gaming doesn't accept them. That's a problem. That's a community problem. That's a brand problem. It's a problem, right? As an aside, I thought the feedback on the tall women thing, that, you know, guys in comments said it's not that men don't like tall women, it's that women won't date shorter men. I don't think it's a solid either or. You know, Nicole Kidman wouldn't wear heels when she was married to Tom Cruise because he didn't want her to. So obviously, you know, it goes both ways. I just think like those are the points where I get on this, because this idea of what is masculine and what is feminine, I think have actually become really poisonous, right? This idea that men should be taller than women. Well, why? No matter who's thinking it, right? Like, we don't live in an age where we have to bash stuff with rocks to survive. It's not like physical strength means you have a protector anymore, you know? Not in the age of home alarms, video doorbells, and handguns, right? It just this idea that of providers and protectors and what we should be so beyond this, like so beyond this. The data, the studies on, you know, women who make more money than their, well, the marriages don't last, but husbands, it's depressing stuff. And I don't think it's any gender doing it to another gender exclusively. I think it's all these damn social messages about what things are supposed to be. And, you know, I keep going back to Fable 2, where maybe it's the way these characters are unveiled, you know, because in Fable 2, it was Hannah the Hammer, and she was a bigger girl, and because it was just, okay, that's the character she's playing, not very many people took exception with it. It's almost like people are taking exception with it to try to outrun something now. That we gotta get our screaming in before the other side starts screaming. And the phrase "own the man babies" comes up a lot. I keep seeing it, this man babies thing. And so it's almost like that's created this, we have to yell and seem tough and do this sort of performative tough guy routine to, like, we're not man babies. And the truth is, the whole man babies thing is a sexist leverage of toxic masculinity, attacking guys who are expressing more tender emotions because they're disappointed by something, don't have a lot of practice voicing that stuff, and so may be awkward about it. But let's face it, the whole guys expressing sadness, guys expressing disappointment, guys expressing hurt, fear, all that stuff, and the so-called progressive wing of the games press calling them man babies, it's hugely hypocritical. But we can deal with that, right? Like where I come from, and maybe this is just because, God, I don't remember a time in my life where I wasn't frequently called names of some kind. I'm always, you know that shirt? I used to love that shirt where it was all white sheep and then there was one black sheep, right? And that was me my whole life, right? You try being a ginger kid in a black majority school. You stick out like a sore thumb. And then all the, the atypical interests and all that stuff. I tended to prefer male teachers to female teachers because they let me be me instead of being concerned something was wrong with me quite so much. Just anecdotal. But I get that it's exhausting, and I get that you want to be done with it. You do eventually hit a point where it's like, yep, okay, there we go again. But let's break this down, games press, you want to, you claim you want to get rid of oppressive gender norms in gaming, and yet you're throwing around comments like man baby. Seems more effective to address that calmly, right? Now, I get that that's hard to do sometimes because it hurts, because it's bringing up, childhood or adolescent trauma connected to bullying, and you can't always hold your shit together when those things happen. It's called being triggered for a reason. But I do think, we can't criticize people for that when we're not allowing the space for those triggers to be seen as valid as the ones that are treated as valid. I mean, I think the problem, this overemphasis on so-called safe spaces, combined with the whole man baby, piss baby, incel thing, it does very much sound like safe space for me, but not for the zero-sum game. Somebody's got to lose. And I don't know of anybody who isn't, a straight up political partisan who wants that. They want everybody to feel like, they truly want everybody to feel like they belong. They want everybody to feel like something is for them. They may not be able to make that particular product for a particular group right now, but, they would in a second if they were given the opportunity. You can only do one thing at a time. And this is where I think the whole social media part of it comes in. We definitely need the powers that be to engage in more deliberation before they speak. I talked before about how, PR needs to recognize that something you say to Polygon could end up on Kotaku in action, right? And they spend money too. And I don't personally think that, I've just seen too many iconoclastic people in both areas. I talked to so many people on both ends of the culture war that don't fit so neatly into the stereotypical boxes the other side holds up of them. And, sometimes, like so many other things, the way you identify in terms of politics has less to do with your actual views and more sort of where you grew up and what you were exposed to and what circles you were sort of incubated in, right? So somebody could, identify as conservative because they had, say, a religious upbringing, but at the same time, they're pro-trans rights, they're pro-gay rights, they just, believe in small government and not that means anything anymore. The economic indicators are just gone. We're living in an age of populism. But what you gotta remember is that there's a very vocal minority driving things like Twitter. And Facebook sucks with gaming, so most of our discussions about gaming happen on Twitter and, Discord and places like that. And I forget, it's the 20% or 10% of Twitter users generate 80% of its content, and it tends to be much more political than the average Twitter user. Stuff like that. And I don't think anybody should have to give up their views. I think there can be some ground rules for stuff, state your opinion and why you think you're right, not something like, I support X cause and anybody who disagrees with me is just a piece of crap. We can draw that line, right? That's very difficult with, say, when you believe someone's denying human rights. But even then, it is possible to say, I support, I happen to support, the Voting Rights Act that passed in Congress. I think they should just pass it, because if not at the very least, because it was developed based on the viewpoints of someone, John Lewis, who put his literal blood, sweat, and tears into a movement. He was invested in it. There's an authenticity there that I think, informs that particular piece of legislation. Now, somebody could say, no, it's too broad. I have issues with this, and this part. They're deal breakers for me. And that doesn't mean they oppose voting rights. I may ask them, well, what are you going to do about these voter disenfranchisement laws that are going on in the States? Maybe they have another solution to it, right? I'm not going to start the whole thing assuming they're a bad, evil person, because why would they talk to me? And I admit, that's how I feel reading some of these comments where people accuse me of deliberately misrepresenting things. Why would someone do that? Why would I talk to you? How is this going to be a productive, pleasant conversation when that's where it starts? There's no point in even beginning a conversation with somebody who is not willing to give me the benefit of the doubt, and I give them benefit of the doubt. There's a reason I didn't do the whole debate me thing, because it wasn't a debate. It wasn't going in, okay, we're both smart people, let the best person win, right? No, they were going to be likely cheap attempts to just score points with individual bases and talk past each other. I was not interested in being a part of that race to the bottom. And this is the part I go, okay, this person left this comment. It wasn't about me. I'm just this avatar. I'm this person not even a person, I'm this thing on the internet that they have access to, that they can yell at, and they can say I'm bad, and they can vent all this stuff, and they can get all this stuff out that they feel silenced about saying other places. And I have to recognize I'm not really a human to those people. That's tough, but that's the reality. Because if they were actually thinking about it as if they were talking to a human, it's reasonably, if I am asking someone for something, if I'm asking someone to make a change for me, to do things differently, accusing them of being a bad person with ill intents is not the way to do it. I'm not a person to these people. I'm just somebody, I'm something on the internet that they can shout at and temporarily feel less scared and small. And that's the same, unfortunately, as the people who are calling gamers man babies and coming up with these conspiracy theories. No one is owning the power that they do have. And that's understandable. It took me a long time to recognize I do have an element of power. And it was actually you guys that kind of taught me that, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is pull a punch, because I was not raised that way. Okay? I was always raised, yes, they said this to a girl, if they hit you, hit them back harder. Right? I couldn't come home crying. Somebody beat me up. Why didn't you hit them back? You're weak. Yeah, I was raised with that paradigm of weakness. My dad basically wanted a boy and didn't get one. It was weakness, stand up for yourself, fight. Really toxic messaging, right? And, growing up, I realized that the truly strong, how Blackbeard the pirate, did all these things so people wouldn't fight him? because that was a guaranteed win, as opposed to, hey, if I actually get in a sword fight, I might get hurt. That's what I realized, that sometimes just taking the hit and not retaliating is a bigger flex. That's actually what people are looking for from people they perceive to have more power than them. They're looking for benevolence. And that kind of makes sense because, you know, the argument of you have power or you want power, show you're worthy of it. And I've found that particularly interesting, that, you know, all the gaming websites that went free Palestine, and they can't even have people say mean words against them on the internet without doing the equivalent of a tactical nuke in a response. That's not very consistent to me. If it's so easy to just sit there and let people hit you, please show an example of that, please, and produce better content that isn't so retaliatory. That has nothing to do with the rightness or the wrongness of the free Palestine position, and everything to do with, please be consistent, right? And the problem is, you bring up something like that and they want to fight you on Palestine. No, not the point. You're entitled to your views. I'm entitled to my views. The point is, are you practicing what you preach? And in a lot of places, a lot of people are not practicing what they preach. And that, I think, is the core of the problem. That, I think, is the core of why there is so little trust, right? And it's frustrating. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. The thing I consistently hear from developers about what they would like in coverage of games is, you know, they wished that the consumers, the gamers, knew more about the process of making games. And I said, well, why don't you provide that content through your PR people then? Well, we have no control over that. Well, why don't you suggest it to them? We stay away from PR. The less PR knows we exist, the better. They're afraid of their own PR departments. The average developer does not have any connection to the PR departments. They're just, if they have to do talkie-talkie, they're given a set of talking points. They're told, don't talk about anything else. They get in trouble if they do. The whole chain is broken. Now, of course, you know, the bigger sites could take the hit on certain articles and just, we're going to run articles just because we believe in them and we think this is noteworthy journalism, even though it's not going to, you know, bring in the same traffic as a, you know, dumb hot take that's going to get hate clicks. But then they have these, you know, these conglomerates that have acquired them. And those conglomerates don't give a shit about video games. They only care about traffic and they only care about money. And mandate, yeah. I mean, stick to sports. And I don't think telling a website to honor its mandate is a bad thing, just to be clear. But you know, there's a real lack of anyone with power to do what I'm hearing a lot of people want. Because the people that do have the power aren't connected to the sort of ground truths in the industry. That's a fixable problem. It's probably gotten worse during the whole COVID thing, just because there's so much craziness and so little in-person contact. But there was very little in-person contact to begin with in gaming press. It's mostly via emails. It's not even phone calls, right? As I was writing, I eventually stopped even asking for developer access, because it used to be, okay, you have 20 minutes. Then it became submit 5 questions via email. What? I can't ask follow-ups? Nope, 5 questions via email. So they can control it. That's not how you do an interview. You can't get a sense of it. You don't get a sense of who the person are as a person. You can't see their eyes light up when they're really excited about a feature. You can't convey the passion that way. But that's the way the industry's going, because everything's been about control, contain, avoid the screaming, as opposed to let's get him. It's not let's get him. It's let's protect ourselves. And, everyone involved in this, trust me, like even the people who seem to be aggressive with the man babies thing, that's the immature shrieking of a traumatized person as well. That's, I'm going to call you a name so you don't know how scared I am of you. They're shaking in their boots. They're terrified. They're legitimately scared of mean words on the internet. That's why I don't get along with those people. Right? You guys bust my chops sometimes, but you're not nearly as delicate. So if you can, don't be afraid of those people. They don't have the control you think. They do have some influence, but there are ways around the influence. It just can't be done. Those things cannot be executed as long as everybody is just shaking in their boots and saying mean words to hide how afraid they are. That's the honest truth. And you can claim I'm misrepresenting. You cannot believe me all you want. It doesn't change the truth of anything. I can't do anything for you if you're afraid to try. I understand why you're afraid to try. Please don't put that on me. It's not me. It makes zero sense that I would come here and misrepresent something for a YouTube video. It's ridiculous. And people who claim to scour hundreds of comments to hunt down that, because this was a complaint I got, I can't find these comments you're referencing. I'm summarizing dozens of comments, not just from YouTube, but on Twitter and other places, on Twitch. But also, why are you hunting down people's comments? That's why I stopped saying names in the first place, because people were getting hunted down and harassed. Don't do that, please. If you can't take my word for something, why are you watching? Seriously, what is that about? Like, I cannot think, and maybe there is something, but I cannot think of any way where that's not some sort of attempt at a gotcha. And that makes no sense. Please, if something seems strange to you about something I've said, I'm just wrong. It is not bad faith. It is not a deliberate misrepresentation. I misunderstood something. That is all it is. Or I blew a summary, or I blew a paraphrase. That happens. There is no ill intent. I don't know why you'd watch a person if you think they have ill intent. I absolutely do not understand that. Someone is welcome to try to explain to me if they think they have an answer for that. It makes no sense to me. So hopefully this sort of validation of feelings and a bit of an explanation helps. Probably just going to get me screamed at some, but like I said, everybody is just expecting and waiting to get screamed at. That's where we're at. That's not fun. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. That was a crappy ending, but the video's long. Thanks for watching.